I'd rather have 5 signs in one neighborhood than 1 sign in 5 neighborhoods. And when
Yep.
you compound what you're doing, that all of a sudden it starts stacking up all this value, and people go, okay, wow, this person's the person I want to speak with. And that's why I think farming, you can layer in as many strategies or tactics as you want. But when it's condensed in one area, it just has that much more effects.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here live with the one and only Ryan Smith, who is the absolute master of geographic farming. So I want to take a moment, welcome you, Ryan Smith, to the podcast. Ryan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your program, and what you're about?
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, and I'm really glad to be here, and I'm glad to share my love of geographic farming with your audience, because I hope that if even people take even a fraction of what I teach and share with you today and just applied, they'll hopefully see the same results and get the passion for farming. So quick backstory on myself. I am a licensed agent. I've been in the business for 15 years now. Basically what's happened in my life is I had moved 4 times in my career. I started out at the very beginning. I moved 3.5 hours away. I got out of a messy relationship. I wanted to kind of fresh start, moved away, didn't know anyone. And thankfully, I say this all the time, is that I joined a team that was very marketing based and direct response marketing specifically. And I learned marketing from a different perspective. And I learned it from a way that most agents never understand. And I learned to do the business differently than most. And it wasn't just prospecting, go out there and grind. And it was learning to attract people and learn to get people to come to me. So I worked on the team for a few years. I decided to branch out on my own. I moved again. I moved to an hour and a half away for love. If there's a theme in my life, it's kind of moving for love. And then I started over again, didn't know anyone in the area. And I tried farming for my first time. I kind of took some of the marketing practices that I learned, but I didn't really get farming, and I failed. I failed miserably. It sucked. I thought I had this whole thing figured out, and I didn't know what I was doing. Fast forward a bit. I was in that area for a few years again. I kind of dove into online marketing and social media and getting a little bit better with, again, the direct response marketing. And then I moved again, and then I took on a role as a productivity coach in my office. And I started coaching and training agents. And I was taking all the things that I'd learned over the years, all the things from my failures, from things I've learned from all webinars and trainings and all kinds of stuff. And then I was helping them apply to their business. After a year and a half, I started realizing, like, hey, this is ridiculous. I'm helping these people put this into their business, and I'm not even doing it in my own business. So I need to dust off my boots, get back into the game, and start again. So I kind of wanted to proof of concept of things that I was working on and things that I had kind of harnessed over the years.
It's
And
kind of like the cobbler's son has no shoes, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I know this works because I've done these, or the people I've coached have done these things. So I kind of created my own little mini program or kind of a basis of what I wanted to build it on. And my business partner at the time, we started this farm, and we had really great results. And for those of you who haven't done farming, or maybe you've heard, a lot of times they teach you that it takes 6 to 18 months or 2 years to even get results in a farm. And the reality is, when you do it correctly, you can speed that up. So for us, we started in September, and we got our first listing in January. And for the next 15 months, we ended up getting 17 transactions. And that was in an area that I was brand new to, never sold a home in the area. And it was all around the positioning and how I did that. And we'll jump into that. So after that, we parted ways. I sold that arm of the business off to him. I went back to doing the coaching and training stuff. And then I launched this program, which what I'm doing now, which is helping agents really fine tune what geographic farming is and how it can be done in the future. And I'm on a mission to really revive geographic farming in a different way than most people have learned about it. And I'm super passionate about it. So that's me in a nutshell.
So the same time that most people suggest it takes geographic farming to start to work, in that same time frame, you managed to get yourself 17 transactions, or 8?
Yeah.
Okay. And is it that you have a system and you created the same system and managed to expedite that same system? Or is it that your system is different, and not only is it better, but it also is expedited?
It's both. It's really both. It's really understanding what farming really is meant to be, in my opinion, and what I've seen, and then taking the approach and shifting and kind of flipping it on its head. So I'll just start with, most people, when they think of geographic farming, the first thing they think about is postcards and door knocking. And I've trained all over North America. I've spoken to thousands of agents, and I ask the question, what do you think? What's the first word that comes to your mind? And the 2 answers that come up is postcards and door knocking. And the reality is, those are strategies that can be used in farming, but they aren't what farming is as a whole. So when you understand in my opinion, what the core fundamental and foundation of what a real geographic farm is about. It reshifts what you do and how you do it and why you do that, and then it allows you to create a lot more opportunities that have never most agents never think about, and then you can start layering on top of that. And that's really where I have shifted and really refocused on how I do farming and why we do it, because it allows for so many more opportunities.
I think one of the things that comes to mind when you say that is that there's a massive distinction between a tool and a strategy. And I think that these two terms are oftentimes conflated.
Yep.
And I think that what you were touching upon there was that geographic farming, to people who think it's just about, let's say, postcards or door knocking, those are all tools to use, but really there's a strategy at play.
Yep.
And it almost reminds me when people say that they don't use social media, that they don't like that they're not a social media person.
Yeah.
It's like a public speaker saying, I'm not a microphone person. Like, you have a message. Like, the microphone is not the speaker here. Like, you have to have a great speech. The microphone is just a medium that you're using to get your speech out there.
Yep.
And same thing with social media. Like, you have something to say to attract the right people. Social media is just a way of getting your message in front of all of those people.
Yep.
But it starts with a strategy, meaning what is your message? How are you attracting them? And maybe some tools are not for others. Some people prefer a handheld mic. Some people prefer a headset mic. It doesn't make a difference.
Yep.
Find your tool that works for you, and then whichever one helps you leverage your quote unquote strategy better, that's the one that is most effective.
That's awesome.
And in your case, I think the I guess the point of conception for this idea is really just an understanding between what the strategy of geographic farming actually is versus the tools that are available to you.
Yep.
Right? Email newsletter happens to be one of them.
Yep.
And we're going to get into each of these tools kind of to help you figure out what tools work for you in your strategy. But I really want to start with, I guess, that core principle, that core idea is, what is geographic farming to you?
Yep, perfect. So that's I think that is a key starting point, and agents have to think about what is farming first before they get into farming. Because if you go in with the blinders on of farming is postcards and door knocking, that's what you're going to see, that's what you're going to chase after, and you have to reframe that. So for me, we talked prior to this, and I've always said this, it's more important to say what isn't farming first, so we know what it's not, and then we can say, okay, then really, if it's not that, then what is it? So it's not postcards and door knocking. It's not billboards and park benches. It's not chest beating and ego driven. It's not getting my name out there to as many people as possible and hoping that they contact me. Those are things that people have done in the past to farm, but it isn't what the foundation of farming is. So I've developed over the years of kind of what I think is the real foundation of real success in farms. And agents who follow this, whether they know it or not, whether they're following this formula, are the ones who are having the most success. And I call it CPR. It's really, how do you breathe life into your farm? And it stands for community, positioning, and relationships. And when you learn to have this in your farm and you focus on this, it creates more opportunities. It allows you to create better strategies and allows you to overall build a better business. So the community is the first step, and it's one of the most critical pieces of it. Is you have to be community focused and turn the attention away from me and put it into the community. So it has to be, I'm going to put my time, attention, and resources into the community that I'm serving. So that may be 500 homes that you're focusing on. It may be a certain part of town. It may be a couple of condo buildings, whatever that is. You put the community first and then put them ahead of the transaction.
Can I just clarify something here? So
Sure.
The first thing we started was saying what geographic farming is not, and then you went out to list a bunch of, I guess, almost a hybrid between strategies and tools. Because you mentioned like ego-driven, like, although ego-driven advertising is ineffective as it may somehow qualify as a strategy.
Yep.
That's almost like a byproduct. It's almost like a tool.
Yep.
So I guess what geographic farming is you're suggesting is it's the understanding of where strategy and tools differentiate and then align.
Yep.
And it's making sure that geographic farming as a strategy is kind of aligned. And then you've broken down the strategy of geographic farming into 3 letters, which is CPR.
Yep.
Which, as you mentioned, stand for community, positioning, relationships. So geographic farming is CPR. Is that correct?
Yeah. The heart of farming is CPR. So I'll back up, and my long-winded answer is strategically focusing your expertise, marketing, and efforts in one specific geographic area to become an expert. So basically, that's the long-winded answer of what farming is. But the heart of it and the core of it, the soul of farming, is the CPR. It's community focused. Then you learn to position yourself, and the positioning is where most people fail. And it's where most people drop the ball is they go, okay, yeah, I got an area. I know I got to focus on them. I want to put them ahead of the transaction, but they fall flat on the positioning part. And that's where the strategies start to come in. And that's where you start to layer in the things that you're doing is going to how you position yourself. So positioning, there's two ways that I believe are how you position yourself. So there's an expert and an ambassador, and you have to have both of those in order in order to work effectively, because you have to learn to position yourself as that person who is that expert, who people are coming out, who trust, they seek you out for information and want to connect with, and then you have to position yourself as the ambassador for that community. So there are multiple ways to position yourself as an expert. And the reality is a lot of agents think that the only way to be an expert is I have to sell more homes. And this is why we get caught in this loop of I have to go out there and beat my chest. I have to go out there and tell everyone how awesome I am. I have to tell everyone how many homes I've sold. And if I haven't sold enough homes, no one's going to work with me. And the reality is if we position ourselves correctly and we learn to position ourselves as the expert up front, you can build trust and build credibility without even having to even have sold a home. So again, in my example, in my farm, we branded ourselves around the neighborhood that we were serving. Rather than be Ryan Smith Real Estate, which everyone and their brother brands themselves and their name and their face, we position ourselves as the Orchard Real Estate team. So we focused on the orchard. That was the neighborhood we were farming. Our logo was the orchard. It was speaking to the people in the orchard. They knew who we were. They knew what we did. So on our first listing appointment, we walked in and the client said, well, I don't know, you guys are the experts, so you tell me what I should do. And then the next one was, well, you're the experts, so you tell me. And then it was, you're the experts, because we positioned ourselves up front to be the experts. We learned all of the schools. We learned all the builders. We learned the models and the floor plans. We learned everything we could about the community. And we just voraciously got in and we got active, involved, and we positioned ourselves as the people who represented the community. Then through the other strategies that we did through the educational marketing and the different pieces, we then positioned ourselves as the ambassador so that people go, okay, not only do they specialize in here, they really care about this community. They care about the people they're serving. They care about the people that live in this neighborhood, so we can trust them even more. They're not just out for a commission check. They're not just here to try to sell me a home. They actually care. So when you learn to position yourself and be the ambassador, trust goes through the roof, and it quickly escalates. And that's how one of the major ways you speed up from 2 years of results into a few months of results, because people know that you care. And I think it's important because a lot of people, when they're taught old school way of doing farming, they're taught send out a bunch of postcards. If you send out enough postcards to enough people, enough times, eventually they're going to trust you. Trust isn't built on a postcard.
Yeah.
It may over time if they see that enough. But if you want to speed that up and expedite that trust factor, there are other things you need to do to really put that into play. So that's the kind of the positioning part of it. We can dive into more if you want. And then the last part is relationships. And in my opinion, the ultimate goal of our business, the ultimate goal of farming is the relationships. The byproduct is selling a home, but the relationships are what drive everything. So I always say when it comes to relationships, we are either trying to enhance the relationships we have or create new relationships. And everything we do, the whole funnel and everything is built around creating new relationships or strengthening the relationships we have. And when those three things work together, you have an amazing machine that will just constantly pound out business. But you have to understand those core fundamentals before you jump into strategies and tactics and all that kind of stuff too.
There's a chronology about what you've built out that I really appreciate because it's super digestible. And I think what would be a cool exercise to do on this call is on this podcast would be to break down, because we haven't even gotten into your process yet. Right now, we've just gotten into the high level understanding about what geographic farming actually is. And then next, we're going to get into how you actually go out and do this, right? So somebody listening to this may say, oh, I need to be an expert and an ambassador. That's all very nice, Ryan, but how do I do that? So you have a whole process broken down to tell me exactly how to actually do that. So what I want to do is I want to actually go from A to Z or Z if you're Canadian to show exactly kind of what this might look like for anybody listening to this. So it all starts with the very first thing is what are you actually trying to accomplish, which is, let's say I'm trying to farm a certain location. Okay. So before we break that down, before we start getting into, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, let's understand where your positioning is. Well, that's a bad word, actually, positioning, because that's actually in your CPR process. Yeah. Let's figure out what our brand is going to be, how we're going to actually do that conceptually. It's all conceptual right now. And the first thing is, which community am I going to serve and how am I going to kind of build that community, and understanding the idea that I'm not here to just be known. I'm here to build the community up, to serve the community. Once I know that, once I've internalized that, I now need to create a way to build myself as both an expert and an ambassador in that community, right? So it requires looking at the community, seeing where they're at, what they need, and thinking about how can I actually serve them. So again, it starts, I know that this community needs this and that. This is going to be the most helpful for them. Once I know that, great. I need to now figure out a way to do that in a way that builds me as the expert and their ambassador. And then once I've done that, I need to get really granular and start developing personal relationships built on trust. And I think that that's a starting point before we get into scope. Is that correct?
Yep, that's perfect. That sums it up exactly how, and you should look at it and understand that. And a lot of people struggle with, where should I choose? What farm should I choose? Or they're told, hey, follow this strategy, this one thing. Or you get people say, this is the only way to do farming. And the reality is, like you said, each area is going to have its own needs and wants. There's going to be certain things that are different, like literally like neighborhood to neighborhood, pocket to pocket, of what's important, problems we can solve, things we can work on. So if there's anyone out there saying there's a one size fits all, you have to do this, or there's no way, it's like, that's bull. Because I mean, while people are pretty much the same, each neighborhood and each thing is going to have its own issues that we can solve, and problems and value we can add. So you have to understand that. So to go back, I would say if you're getting started, you have to have an area you're going to farm, and you have to be committed to that. We could take an entire session just on choosing a farm, because there's lots of things you should consider. Again, traditional training says to just look at good turnover rate, and that's all you got to look at. That was the mistake I made. I followed traditional methods of just say, pick something with a good turnover rate and just hammer it. It's not true. There's a lot of other factors you want to consider. But before that, also, you have to start with your budget. And I always coach, anytime I'm training with new agents or coaching with them, it starts with your budget. And I don't just mean your financial budget. There's a budget that we have to consider in a number of factors. Financial is obviously the most easiest to understand, because you can say, I need X amount of dollars. This is how much I'm going to spend. But one that a lot of people overlook is a time budget. How much time am I going to commit to this upfront? How much time am I going to commit to this long term? How much time am I going to have? And do I have enough time to maintain? If I build an amazing thing, can I keep it running? It's like, you can build an amazing car, but if you don't maintain it, it's not going to be great. So you have to be able to maintain it, and there's going to be time and energy. So then an energy budget as well. And a lot of people, that's the one that most people miss, is that they don't realize how much mental energy and emotional energy it takes. If you're active and you're involved and you're doing things, if you're doing things you hate, you're not going to have a large budget to go through. If you hate cold calling and you do that, you're going to zap through your energy. If you hate open houses, you're going to zap through your energy. If you hate online marketing, you're going to zap through your energy. You have to find things that, while you may not enjoy doing them, are going to keep you going, but you have to budget that in. And knowing that, you may just keep doing it, but it's like, okay, hey, this really drains me, so I'm only going to have so much time or energy to put into this. And then lastly is a resource budget. So how many resources do you have? Whether that's people, staff, physical things, how much resources am I going to put into this farm? And when you can start with that, you can say, okay, I'm going to start with my budget and then work backwards. That will help me develop what strategies I do and why I do it.
Yeah. And I would also say, when you mentioned before about if the time budget that you have, like, it's either about finding things that don't zap your energy, or even if something does need to be done, like finding ways to make it easier.
Exactly. 100%.
Right.
Yep. That's
like
shifting your budget around to make it work.
Exactly. Like, if you hate cold calling, that doesn't mean like don't even think about cold calling. That might mean do less cold calls than people advise, or it might mean find an ISA. Or, like, if you're a successful agent, also, like, successful agents basically have it made, because another agent can throw their name around and you'll cold call for me, and then you'll get commissions for everybody that you put me at their kitchen table. Like, I think that that sort of ties into what you're talking about as well.
Yep.
So now that we understand the theory of it, I really want to get granular here for a second.
Sure.
So what I want to do, like I mentioned over the course of this podcast, is we're going to now go quickly through the process on a high level, so that everybody listening to this will say, okay, I understand, but what does that actually look like? And then we can go back to the beginning, follow the same process that you've spelled out for us, but with an exact execution, like manifested in a specific kind of way.
Yep.
So we understand that we want to grow through geographic farming. We understand that in order to even start with that, we have to have a core principle beliefs, which are CPR, community, positioning, and relationships. We get that conceptually.
Yep.
So now let's get into the actual execution. And there's an acronym that I think I mentioned it, but I'm gonna let you tell me about what that execution actually looks like.
Sure. Yep. So I developed a method I call the SCOPE method, and it stands for self-promotion, community, online, offline, prospecting, and education. And where that came from was looking at agents who have succeeded and agents who did not succeed at farming and saying, what things do they have in common? What things are overlapping that are working together? What are those common traits or strategies and things that people are doing? And I distilled it down to these 5 things. And you have to have, again, if you want to have large success, you can have success doing one of these things and have some success with it. But if you really want to have dominance, if you really want to have market share, you need to ensure you have a balance in your business. And you do that using the SCOPE method. So you have to have some self-promotion in there. I mentioned.
Can I just clarify one more thing also? Is this also chronological? Like self-promo is first?
No. It can be, they kind of overlap. And I'll share an example after this about what I call strategy stacking and how we layer our strategies together using this kind of framework. It's more of like a checklist, and you want to make sure that you are meeting these criteria and you have this in place. So when it comes to farming, most people, when they do farming, historically speaking, were doing self-promotion. That's what they were doing. That's what most traditional old school farming was. Get your name out there to as many people as you can, push it out, and just keep pushing it out. You're promoting yourself to as many people so that they see who you are and they go, okay, I know Ryan, I've seen his postcards, I've seen him enough times that I want to work with him. That can work. On its own is not going to be as effective, and it by itself as a standalone strategy is not going to be enough to really gain true market share. So we'll look at that, put it aside, and then I'm going to come back and see how we put it all together. Then again, the community is a big part of it. So you have to be community focused in the strategies that you're doing. If you want to reach more people and you want to connect with people at their level, there's a large portion of the population living in your farm that cares about the community they live in, that cares about community-based things, that wants to see you active and involved in the community, that wants to see you making a difference in the community. So we have to look at what strategies can we do that are effective, cost-effective, time-effective, resource-effective, that we can have an impact in that community. Because if we miss that piece, there is a large percentage of people who we are missing, and we're just not going to reach them. So if you go back to, again, the self-promotion, we want to reach people because not everyone's going to resonate or not everyone's going to respond to everything we do. For example, if I mail out a postcard and I just keep mailing out postcards, you may have 2 people living in a house. One partner grabs the mail, and that's their job. That's what they do. They grab the mail. They're the only person. They grab the mail, they go to the bucket, and they throw it out. The other person may have responded to that, or they may not have, and we never reach them. So we don't know. So we have to make sure that we're reaching people in the modalities and in the ways that they're going to resonate with. So community is a big part of that, and it allows us to create more balance. The next one is online and offline, and we have to ensure that we are doing both. A lot of agents are great at one, but not both. So sometimes they're great at online marketing, but they suck at doing offline, or they have a problem shifting from one to the other. My belief is that you need to move people from online to offline and offline to online, and the more crossover you can get from that, the higher the chance you are going to convert people. So if you're only sending a postcard and there's no online attached to it, you're not going to get a lot from that. And then the next one is prospecting.
Just to add to that also, there's not really anything that spells omnipresent as much as seeing someone's billboard and seeing their ad.
Exactly.
Right? Like you could see their ad on Facebook, then you could see their ad on Google, then you could see them post on Instagram.
Yep.
And it's like, great. So you've dominated my little phone screen, and there's certainly a ton of power to that. But when they see that and then they're driving to work and then they see your billboard or they see like a postcard in the mail, it's like, damn, this guy's everywhere. And It's impossible to ignore that person. And as long as you're providing value, again, as long as you're following your CPR, right, your community focus, you're serving, and that's kind of the idea. That's the prerequisite, I suppose, that you've acknowledged and embraced before you go ahead and promote.
Yep.
It's not annoying that you're everywhere. It's like, wow, this guy's just providing and serving in every single capacity on every platform.
Exactly. And the omnipresence is a big part of it. And that's where it doesn't have to take too much strategies to do that. And that's where we'll talk about in the strategy stacking, how you can layer that in so that you are using your time efficiently. But when they see you on this channel, this channel, this channel, this channel, then they go, oh, okay, Ryan is the agent. Oh, he is the person I need to talk to. Oh, I've seen his stuff here. Or I've connected with him here. Oh, I've seen him at the community events. Then people start to trust. If you are only door knocking, or if you're only cold calling, or if you're only doing postcards, you are missing out and you're not building that trust into it. So the prospecting is a big part of it. And while a lot of people shiver at the thought of prospecting, because most agents are terrified of cold calling, door knocking, or whatever, the reality is when we use it through the CPR and the scope lens, you can make prospecting fun because you can layer it into what you're doing. And it is prospecting, but in a different way. And I'll share in a few minutes some strategies on how you can do that as well. Because prospecting, when done correctly, is value adding to you, and it adds value to the clients or the people you're serving as well. And you have to think of it that way, not just, hey, I'm here to try to find business.
Can I ask a quick digression question here?
Yeah.
Farming and geographic farming, or it sounds like geographic farming is a description word of the word farming, but I could really farm in any capacity. For
100%.
example, the whole concept of a Dream 100, I'm farming a list of 100 top names. It's not geographic. Let's say it's, I don't know, socioeconomic status farming or something like that. But that's kind of the same idea, right?
Farming can be, as a blanket statement that can be laid into demographic, sociographic. I could farm FSBOs. I could farm my database. It's putting your time and energy and effort into one area. However, in my belief, when layered into a geographic farm, you get way more out of it because you are layering in all your strategies in one area.
Yeah. Well, especially as a local business.
That's exactly. And then I've always said I'd rather have 5 signs in one neighborhood than 1 sign in 5 neighborhoods. And when you compound what you're doing, that all of a sudden it starts stacking up all this value, and people go, okay, wow, this person is the person I want to speak with. And that's why I think farming, you can layer in as many strategies or tactics as you want, but when it's condensed in one area, it just has that much more effect. So yeah, that's a great question on that. So the prospecting is important. You have to understand how and why to do it correctly. And when you do it correctly, it makes it so much easier. And then the last element is education. And this is the part where I think is the most opportunity for agents. When we learn to put education first, and we can learn to establish ourselves through positioning using education, we can become the dominant agent because we are giving resources, we are sharing, we are using education as a way to keep people informed. It shows that we are trustworthy. It shows that we know what we're talking about. It shows that we are looking out for them. And you can layer that in almost every single thing you do. You can if you don't have an educational component in your business, you're missing out. So going back to it all, when you have your farm, you got to be looking at saying, okay, of these 5 strategies, what am I doing good at? Obviously, you're going to be good at one of these. Hopefully, you're doing good at one of them. And then you got to look at it and say, okay, what other things can I raise the bar on? Maybe I'm not so good at the education. Okay, I got to raise that thermometer a bit. Maybe I need to work on my offline and online. Maybe I need to work on some prospecting. Maybe I need to work on some community-based stuff. And then you can start to kind of have a more balance in your business. And then you'll see more opportunities, because if you're so focused on, okay, I'm going to door knock or I'm going to postcard, you're missing out and you're not seeing the other opportunities. And by looking at it through the scope method lens, it creates more opportunities for you to add in proper value and strategies.
Yeah. So it's about making sure that your business is banging on all cylinders at one time, right?
Exactly.
I've got five different ways of generating business. And if they're all working simultaneously, then they're all kind of focused on the same direction through different channels, obviously, but to grow a business to the same effect.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. So let's go back now and execute this actually in my business. I'm a real estate agent, let's say in Hamilton, Ontario, my hometown, right? So where do I start?
Choosing a farm is the number 1 place. So you have to have an area.
Let's say Westdale. Westdale is an area that's close to me. So let's actually say I want to become the agent in Westdale. So let's get into CPR. What does that look like for me?
So if you know Westdale's your area, you have your community outline of who you want to focus on. Now we need to know as much as we can about Westdale as possible. This is where it takes a bit of research and some time up front. And this is where agents kind of fall off sometimes. I would need to know what schools are in the area, how many homes are in the area, what businesses in the area. So you want to do some research and start really find out what is in Westdale. What makes Westdale unique? I
can tell you a little bit about Westdale. Westdale is a very big college town, right? We have university. We have McMaster University right over here. So there's a ton of student housing all over the place. And so investors love student housing because you can charge $600-700 a month per room, obviously depending on the size of it. So for investors, Westdale is an amazing, amazing area. So to understand what the community actually, like the value of this community and how I can best serve it, I know it's a university town, and I know I'm trying to service the families of these students, because also families of these students will purchase an investment property, let their kids stay there, and then just
Yep.
keep on making residual income. And
Yep.
oftentimes they will leave that home for their kids as an
Right.
investment property for them in the future. So I now know this about the community. And would my next step be to figure out how I can best serve them? Is that the next
That's
step?
exactly. So once you kind of figure out the general who's living in there, what's important to them, what factors are playing into this, then you go, okay, how do I reach them and how do I add value to them? Now,
Okay.
obviously, Westdale's a bit unique in that not everyone has a neighborhood that has universities, and so the strategies are definitely going to be different for that than say a suburban area or a condo or whatever. But we'll run with Westdale. So if we know that it's a university town and most people are university pocket, where are the buyers coming from? So we have to figure out where the buyers are coming from, because a lot of people are so focused on just the listing side of things. We have to attract who might
Yeah.
be selling, and then where are the people who are going to buy in there from, and then figure out who is that community. Sometimes it's the same community. Like if you live in a suburban neighborhood, you have people moving up
Yeah.
and moving in and staying in that neighborhood, so it becomes easier. But if you're having people moving from out of town, it's going to be a different animal and different approach.
So I'll tell you, a lot of the students that we get are from ancillary cities and communities like Niagara, for example, like Toronto, like I suppose Montreal, although not as much, but kind of these close by areas in the GTA, like Guelph, those kinds
Yep.
of places. So
Yep.
now I know that. I just want to keep on moving. I just want to see what this, because it's really cool. I see the idea.
So then from the buyer's perspective, you're going to try to reach buyers from outside the area. From the seller's perspective, we're going to contact them and try to get them when they're ready to sell. Statistically speaking, if they're a university town, probably they're going to be getting closer to getting ready to sell that home prior to just before school's over. There's kids done school. Maybe they bought it and they're September, or they've come up to May or June, and they're like, okay, I'm either tired of this, I don't want to be a landlord anymore, or my kid's done school and I want to sell it off. So your marketing and your message and the value add should be based around that, knowing that most people are going to be selling it, disposing of, or trying to get on, or they may be looking to buy another property in the area. Maybe they are an investor and they want to add a pool to it. So the marketing needs to match that and be based around that. It's a little trickier because the people living in the homes are the students, not the owners. So it's a
I understand.
little bit trickier on how we reach them, and the community aspect won't be as
So
prevalent.
let's just make a quick shift here, because let's say, because Westdale also, there are families like that live around Westdale. So let's focus on this. So I'm the single family agent in Westdale, and so the community that I'm trying to serve are
Yep.
these families that are trying to relocate to this university town, that maybe the houses are oftentimes harder to come by, they're oftentimes overlooked. But I think right now it's probably pretty easy to become their ambassador because there's not a whole lot of people speaking for them.
Yeah, exactly. So I know Westdale. I have a place in Hamilton. Westdale's an older neighborhood, so I'd be looking at, okay, who would be attracted to Westdale? It's going to be older homes, mature neighborhood. You're going to be speaking a different language than someone who's looking for a brand new home and a brand new subdivision. So that messaging is going to change, and how we reach them. If we're targeting the people in the area, generally speaking, it's going to be one of two people, I would imagine. It's, like you said, the investors or people who are going to stay there for a while. Most people buying into an older home are going to stay there for
Right.
a longer amount of time. They love the home. It's their they move up into that dream old century
with the
home. They
character.
love it. So again, that puts it a little bit different of a spin on it, because you've got a longer turnover rate for someone who's buying in that home. So to attract them, I would be becoming an expert on all things historical, all things renovations, updates, things that is going to be prevalent to the people living in that neighborhood, which are what matters to someone living in an old home. That's going to be a big part of it. So upgrades, efficiencies, eco green conversions, large lots. So maintaining your thing. So one of the things that I start with always is what businesses are serving that neighborhood and what businesses can serve that. And I would be focusing on the local businesses first and saying, how can I add value by focusing on the local businesses?
That's a great, because they've already done their research to figure out how they could serve already.
Yep. And so if you've got a roofing company, if you've got a window company, you've got a landscaping company, they know the area, they're serving that area, and we can be focusing on bringing value that way. So yeah, so in this instance, I would say become the ambassador on older homes and start bringing as much value as you can that way.
So just to confirm, we haven't even started on the actual execution yet.
No.
Right now, we've picked a community. We're learning and researching how we can serve their community and delight the people that live there.
Yep.
We're conceptualizing how we're going to become the expert, again, which channels to use, but it's all right now conceptual. And what's the best way that we can become their ambassador, right? Because we're talking CPR at this point. We haven't even gotten into scope. And then the relationships that we're building would be the restaurant owners and the local business owners and that kind of thing.
Yep, exactly.
And now we're ready to start executing. Yes.
Yep. So then once we know how to position ourselves, then that will translate into the CPR of how we position ourselves through the strategy. So ultimately, I would start with, before you get into there, is, are there any relationships you can leverage to begin with? Do you have any friends, family, past clients that you can already tap into? If you don't, if it's a brand new area, obviously you're starting all from scratch, building brand new relationships. But if you already have some, obviously start with those. So now we get into scope. Now we need to, okay, what do we actually need to do?
Is it okay if we create a hypothetical relationship so that we can see the example in action?
Sure.
Let's say if I'm friends with, I don't know, the principal of one of the local schools or something like that. So there I have some in. So now that we know that we have that relationship, I guess now we have something to leverage so we can bang on all cylinders. Yeah.
Yep. So if I had a relationships people, I would be doing a survey to them, asking them for what matters to you, what's important to you, what things do you see, what needs do you see needing in this community. I would be doing my research on, are there any other agents doing anything similar? If you don't know, if you've never farmed the area before, if you don't know what marketing is being sent out there. So I would rely on relationships to do your research, to figure out what matters and how you can add value. That's one of the easiest ways to tap into the people you already have, and then leverage that to further add on to what you're doing.
Okay, I understand. So I think right now at this point in time, I've identified my community. I know the relationships that I'm going to try to leverage. I understand the idea that I'm going to try to execute on. Now it's just about putting a plan into practice. So now we start getting into scope. So what does, again, self-promo, community, online, offline, prospecting, education, I guess let's start with self-promo. What might that look like for me?
So one of the easiest ways to self-promote is counterintuitive, in that you want to promote other people. And this is where I'm a firm believer that you are going to promote yourself by promoting other people. And I'll use Oprah as an example. Oprah is the queen of promoting other people. Oprah is not an expert in anything. She's an expert in having experts on her show and share that expertise. So if you are new to the area, or you don't have a lot of experience, you don't have a lot of sales, the quickest and easiest way to grow your audience and promote yourself is to promote other people. So if I was getting started, I would be going to all the local businesses, and I'd be doing a small video series, 2-3 minute video, just a quick intro about the businesses, interview them, and share that with your audience. So you're building content. And the reason why that's so powerful is there's 4 reasons why. The first is you're creating content for your audience. So you have something of value you can share with your audience. You say, here's some great content of stuff that's going on. You're building relationships with those local businesses. So hopefully down the line, they'll want to refer you. But you're also, which is the one that's the most important, is you're getting in front of their audience. And when you get interviewed, something magical happens. When you are interviewed by someone else, when you're highlighted by someone else, you are going to share that because it makes you look good, makes you feel good. When this video comes out, I'm going to share it with my audience because it elevates my expertise. It's Oliver's had me on his show. I'm going to share that with my audience. This is great. So when you interview local businesses, they're going to share it with their audience. They're going to share it with their friends. They're going to share it with their family. So now you doing your business interview, you now all of a sudden open up to their clientele and their database. And that's a very quick and easy way to get exposure through their video. For example, my partner just started doing videos, and she just did a video for a community neighborhood business, and she got more viewings from that local business sharing it, because we track where it all came from, than her own audience. So if you start to focus on these local businesses and things happening in the community, it's going to spread, and it'll spread very quickly. So that now you're promoting yourself in a different way by promoting other people.
And I would actually specify also is that when you do post it to Instagram, for example, make sure to collaborate with the person on that reel. And when I say collaborate, I don't mean actual collaboration. I mean, there's a feature on Instagram where you can collaborate with another creator or another account. And so you invite them to be a collaborator. And then that one video that goes on your account also goes on their account, but you get one viewership. So let's say if you get 10,000 people view that because they have, 100,000 followers. So they get 10,000 views, and you posted that same video. As long as they're a collaborator, you also get 10,000 views on your video. So I think that it also gives your account that kind of clout and that bump as well. So it's not just about posting it and saying, hey, I just spoke with this name. You actually invite them to be a collaborator. And that's one of the things that I like to do, for example, for my podcast is exactly like you said, Ryan. I'm going to be promoting this and I'm going to be inviting you as a collaborator, because why the heck would I not leverage your audience? Because maybe they want to know about me, and my audience sure as hell wants to know about you. And so now we're both literally elevating each other by letting you piggyback on my viewership and you're letting me piggyback on your viewership.
Exactly. And that's I've said to agents, like, that's one of the fastest ways to get in there and build an audience, especially if you don't have it. And that's, if you go back to the CPR, that positions you as an expert and it positions you as the ambassador for the community, because you're helping the community. You're being a champion for the small businesses.
Yes.
You are being seen as that person who's fighting for the small businesses, which people love. People know and want to support small businesses. So they're saying, okay, Ryan is the person who's here supporting these small businesses, supporting these local businesses. That's the kind of person I want to work with.
I also want to take this one step farther. And this is something that one of the first things I saw in my own business is, when you have a podcast, you have access to people that you maybe wouldn't have had access to otherwise. And this is insanely powerful, because let's even say you've got, I don't know, the local business that everybody goes to, this restaurant that's always hopping and they're active on social media. Even if they have, like we said, hundreds of thousands of followers, how many people ask the owners to come onto their podcast? And so it's a fun opportunity. Maybe some people will go in and film the food, but if you say, like, hey, I'm doing a short podcast series, I'd love to have you on the show. I'll come to you with the microphone. Don't worry. You bet that they're going to spend the 5 minutes to talk to you. And especially if you're going to edit the clips and send it back to them or invite them as a collaborator, why wouldn't they just click accept and just, there's no work on their end.
Exactly. And that's why it's so powerful. But again, like you said, it takes some work up front. But once you get that down pat, it's a no-brainer. And you can, once you have a few of them in the can, you can say, hey, here's some past examples of what we've done. Would you like to be featured? Every small business wants to be promoted. Every small business wants to be marketed. So of course they're going to want to do that. Now, some people may be shy. They may not be as comfortable doing that, but the easier you make it, the better you make it, the more likely they're going to do that. And now you've got a built-in audience from their audience.
For sure. And as a new agent that knows no one, you will now have access to people that you would never have had access to, or I wouldn't say never, that you wouldn't have had access to for a number of years. If you're the top agent and you go to someone and you say, hey, I'd love to, let's say, I don't know, I'd love for you to come on my show and talk, or I'd love to maybe grab a cup of coffee with you and pick your brain and see how we can help the community. Unless you're the top agent, most people don't really have the time for that. But if you're a brand new agent that doesn't know anyone and you say, I'd love to host you guys or feature you guys on my podcast talking about the greatest small businesses, when can I come by your office and just ask you 2 questions? Like, they will say yes to that. And that's insanely powerful. I love that. Anyway, sorry.
So what I would think, we can go through and kind of give an example for each one of the scopes. And then I'm going to show you how we can kind of tie it all together. So from a self-promotion, that's one of the easiest ways to do that. Agents can do that. No cost, easy to do. You got a cell phone, you got Zoom. You can do that. That's it. There's no reason other than your own self-confidence to stop you from doing that. You can use service like yours to do the editing if you want to do videos. Like, there's so many different things you can do. That's an easy way to self-promote. The next one would be community. And when it comes to community, you have to look at what opportunities are there and what opportunities aren't there. And a lot of people get hung up and go, well, we don't have anything going on in our community. That's great. If there's nothing going on in your community, become the champion, become the ambassador for the community and bring things. If there are existing things that are happening in the community, you can leverage those. You can jump on board, you can piggyback onto those and be involved with them. So you have to figure out in your community what is relevant to people and what's going to create the most value and connect with people. So one of the easiest, again, I'm going back to easy if you're getting started brand new, one of the easiest things to do for the community level is either start a community Facebook group or get involved in the community Facebook group. And that is one of the best opportunities because those community groups are hyper local. The people that are living in there are talking about things that are happening in that community. The conversations are real time about what's going on in that community. So you can listen, you can engage, you can react, you can interact. And I think a lot of people miss out on Facebook groups because they think it's they jump in there and just try to promote themselves. Yeah. And I give the example of a Facebook group is like a party. If you got invited to a party, you can sit around, you can sit back in the corner and do nothing. You can just watch people, and that's okay. You can interact, you can mingle, you can talk to one person. You may find someone you may know, but the opportunity is there's all these different conversations going on, and you can listen in on those conversations and not
Right.
be a creep. Like if I was at a party, I wouldn't just lean in and listen,
Mhm.
but you could. We have the opportunity to listen in on real conversations of real people. It's a marketer's dream. Like
It is.
a marketer used to pay tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to get that kind of information. And we have it literally at our fingertips with the people who we are serving saying, hey, this is going on. This is not going on. This is what I need help with. Hey, this is what's happening. And we have an opportunity to interact. We have an opportunity to promote ourselves. So we can, by being involved and engaging, we can now promote and get involved. But we have an opportunity to have real conversations. So when it comes to Facebook groups, I always say you have to look at it differently than a Facebook page. Facebook groups is speaking with your audience,
Mhm.
and a Facebook page is speaking at your audience. One is pushing out a message to people. Your Facebook page is tending to be, I have a message, I want to push it out and get as many people to follow it. Your Facebook group is you're having those conversations. So when you look at it at that level, there are so many opportunities. And like, again, I teach just a 1 hour session just on Facebook groups on how you can
Yeah.
leverage it. But that is one of the easiest, cost effective, time effective ways to get involved and get active in the community and really build relationships.
Just to double down on there, it's been a long time since I've actually thought of a YouTube idea, a YouTube video idea, because I don't really think of them anymore. Why would I try to create a question that somebody might ask instead of just going to the places that the people that I'm trying to serve are and just
Yeah.
finding out what their questions are?
Yep.
So I go into groups like Lab Code Agents, fantastic group, like Real Estate Mastermind, and I just, again, I could talk to people, but I just basically shut my mouth, scroll down, and I see, hey guys, I'm not sure if I should go solo or if I should join a team. I have no idea how to even decide. Can someone please help me? Great. YouTube idea, right? I'm not sure if I have what it takes to be successful. How do I know when I should quit? Like this is gold to me. And I'm gonna go and I'm gonna genuinely serve my people through that, through just listening. And I love that you said Facebook groups because I'm a massive believer in this. Because the other thing is, if you were to, let's say you own your own Facebook group, you can ask 3 questions when somebody comes in, right? Somebody comes into your group and you say, I have XYZ lead magnets. Which email can I send it to? So as long as your lead magnet is actually of genuine value, let's say every week I send out a newsletter with the top places to go or weekly coupons to local small businesses, why wouldn't I give you my email address? So that's a lead.
Yep.
The second thing is you ask something about them that gives you some information, which helps. You can even ask, being that I'm a realtor, I help realtors find their home. Do you currently own a home or you're looking to purchase? And if they say, well, either way, honestly, but if they say I own a home, great. That's a guy who you should put in your contact and say, this guy owns a home.
Yep.
And then would you be interested in someone from our team reaching out to see if we could help you do XYZ? Yes or no?
Yep.
So now you've got their email, so now they're a lead. You've got information from them, so you have that data now. Do they own a home or not? And you've now leveraged permission marketing by just asking, can I reach out to you? And you'd be surprised how many people say yes, because you're coming from a place of welcome to my group. I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you that. Hey, would you mind if I called you at your convenience to see if we could maybe discuss? Like, sure. Yeah, why not? It's just powerful beyond belief.
Exactly. And if they say no, you catch them later on as they're part of the group and they see the value you're bringing and the conversations you're having, you get them later on. So it's very powerful, but it does take work. And this is where a lot of agents are afraid of that initial work up front and getting it set up. But the reality is it's so super impactful. And again, now if we go back to that first step, which is doing business interviews, one of the things you can do when you have people having conversations, asking questions, if you've got business interviews done, when someone asks for, hey, who's a good dog walker? Oh, hey, so-and-so is a great dog walker. Here's the video I just did with them. Check it out. Let me know what you think. Now you're promoting yourself by promoting other people. You're providing value to your audience. You're sharing that with them and they go, oh, that's awesome. Versus just a tag someone or post a website. You're showing your face in front of people who positioning you as that expert and the ambassador, and it cycles through. So
that's exactly what happens. That's exactly what I do. Again, I get their ideas for the video, and then when I see someone asking a question, I just go grab the link and say, hey, here's what we do, and I post it. And nobody thinks it's anything obnoxious, anything like that, because I'm not ever selling myself.
Exactly.
That's
and
awesome.
I did it that recently. I did an interview on my blog or my podcast, and one of the guests was talking about AI. Someone had asked a group in one of the real estate groups about AI and say, who would you use? Hey, you got to speak with likely.ai. Shared the link, and my views went from like 40 to 140 in a matter of one afternoon, because now, and people are like, oh, that's amazing. I got new followers, I got new subscribers, and people appreciated that value. So the Facebook group now becomes your hub, and you can now have conversations with people. You can promote the things you're doing in there, and then
Yep.
you can then build on that. So that's the community one that I would add on that would be very easy to do. The next one is online and offline.
I'm so sorry. I know I keep on going into this,
No,
but
go for it.
you also could add your interview.
Yeah.
You could either stream it live or just add it inside the actual group as well. So content's also taken care of.
It's exactly that's where I come back. That value number one is you have content for your audience, and you create that content that they're going to enjoy, and you have hopefully you build a following enough that they start consuming your content on a regular basis. So the next one would be online and offline. This one can be trickier depending on what you're doing, but if we're using the Facebook group as an example, go out and door knock offline and say, hey, we've got a community group. We're looking to get new people in there. Would you like to join our community group? We've got this, and this. Like you mentioned, maybe you've got coupons, maybe you've got some value add that you're going in there. You can literally leverage that. Or I'm going to see if I have it over here. You can use community events offline and tie it together. So this is years ago. So we did a community event and we door knocked and we let people know about a community event. It was an offline thing. And then we also have our report for our guide. So we have that tied together, and then we connect those two together, and we could do it. I've got, can't find it. I fell off my desk somewhere. Neighborhood. It's like a neighborhood watch program where people can find out how much their home's worth by seeing what homes come on the market. We leverage that offline marketing, turning it into online, and we would use that. And then vice versa. If we have people in our groups, hey, did you want to get a copy of our report? Did you want to get a copy of our guide? We drive them from that, and we drive them to offline avenues. So you have to, again, go back and say, what value can I add? What things can I offer? What things can I bring to the community? And look at how you can cross those. That one's going to be kind of case by case specific. But in the case of this, an easy one would be offline to online would be print off a postcard, go out and say, hey, we're putting together a new community Facebook group. We're going to have this, and this. Here's what's going to happen. We're interviewing everybody or inviting everybody. Get a custom link. So westdalefacebook.com, use that or QR code, and then go out, personally invite people, leave those postcards behind, and watch that grow. You will see that grow. Like people, if you connect and people say, oh, I met Ryan, he was at the door, oh, he's got this great group, they're going to want to connect.
Yeah. And then let's say that sends them to a landing page where they give you the name and number to get access to the group, and then they click enter the group, and it redirects them to the Facebook group.
Exactly.
So now you're manually going out. You're not saying, hey, do you want to buy or sell a home? You're saying, hey, we're doing a Facebook group. This is amazing value XYZ that I'm putting in there. And again, it started with CPR. It started with knowing your community. Yep. So I know that my community of Westdale, let's say the families that want to live there long term, are looking for things to do with their families. And that's all they really care about: ways to save money, things to do with their families, places to go. And you go there and you say, I'm going to do pain point number one. I'm going to do a thingy that you really want number two. And I just give them what they want. Here's the postcard with a link to join. Why would they say no to that?
Exactly.
It's free lead generation. And so now you've got them from offline into your Facebook group. You're promoting yourself by promoting other people. And then they're promoting you as well, because that's kind of a cycle.
Yep.
And then you're also using that self promo to grow the community that you're building through your offline and online efforts.
Exactly. And it starts to stack, and you start to build that, and it all starts to work together. So the next one is prospecting. And this is where a lot of people drop the ball on a prospect, because most people, when they do prospecting, it's generally cold prospecting, looking for business. They're like, hey, are you thinking about making a move? That's what most people's prospecting, their mindset goes to that. My firm belief is we should be reverse prospecting. So if we have clients looking for something, we should be looking for them. So if we have a buyer looking for a home, when you do that, it kills two birds with one stone. You're helping your buyer look for the right home. They're happy because you're prospecting for them.
Right.
The consumer sees that, oh, Ryan has a client. So now you're prospecting. You're not just saying, are you selling your home? You're saying, I have a buyer. Are you selling your home? Now they see that. And the more often they see that, the more likely you're going to get business. But what happens is when you start to tie this together and you start to get into what I was just talking about with the groups, when you reverse prospect, things start changing in people's minds, and they start to see you differently because they see you. They got your newsletter, they got they saw your video. Then when the real estate stuff pops up, they remember you, versus they could see the exact same ad by 70 other people. But when you start prospecting to them, they're going to remember you. So one of the things I teach is borrowing listings. So leveraging other people's listings to generate more business. That's something I've done my whole business. That's something I taught my partner when she's doing her business. I've taught many agents that. And what happens is when you start to promote those businesses in your Facebook groups, to your community, through your newsletter, to this, it starts to position you. So when Nikki and I moved down here to Niagara, she hadn't sold any homes before. We started borrowing listings. She used that strategy and she started getting clients. And she started getting leads. And then realtors started going, oh, wow, I saw your listings. I saw you're doing really well. That prospecting is a way to stay on top of mind, but you have to do it effectively. So you have to think about, how can I add value to the people that I'm serving? How can I do this in a different way? And then how can I tie that together? So again, going back to something like this, we had our event on one side and then prospecting the other. So when you tie prospecting in with something else, it becomes so much easier. I'll give you an example. Nikki's doing a community garage sale. She did one last year, had a great success with it. She's doing one again this year. So now she's going out and she's promoting the community garage sale. So the first conversation is, hey, just wanted to invite you out. We're doing a community garage sale. Just want to see if you're interested. Oh, by the way, we also have this neighborhood report. Did you want to get a copy of it? Well, she took the edge off. She's talking with the community. Now she goes into the neighborhood home price report. That then gets people interested. And then she prospects them once they're in her pipeline. And that just, it just takes the edge off,
changes the conversation,
easier, and it changes exactly. If she just called and said, hey, you think about making a move? No, screw off, get lost. Like, she doesn't get people hanging up. People don't get hung up on when you do it in a chronological order that adds value.
So I actually just had a conversation yesterday. I'd mentioned this to you with Brandon Morenin, and he's the king of something he calls reverse selling. I was thinking that when you said reverse prospecting, but the conversation, like when it starts with a sale, I think the problem is that when people conflate sales and marketing, they think that there's a sale to be had there.
Yep.
And so I may be prospecting, cold calling people that in a million years I haven't positioned myself to even start attempting to try to sell to them.
Yep.
So I may say my conversion rate's only 13% of people that fit X, Y, and Z. Why is this happening? When the reality is that there was never a sale to be had there because you started from a sale. But if you start from, come to my community garage sale, let's do this, and then you talk to them, now their minds are even remotely open to having a conversation with you about this. Maybe they weren't even thinking about it then, but it's not like this is where the sale even remotely begins to start. You can only start thinking about your conversions and whether or not you can actually close somebody at that point. But it's a non-starter before that. It's not even like I couldn't get the sale, I couldn't get the conversion. Maybe there's another way that I can manipulate the conversation. Another thing I could say, like, no, like God made us to make sincere, genuine relationships.
Yep.
We're not gonna hack the system that God created.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. He made us relationship focused, relationship driven beings.
Yep.
So we're gonna try to create some line that we heard from some 19-year-old TikToker, freaking entrepreneur enthusiast moron that drove me crazy. I saw this thing from this kid who clearly had never sold freaking anything in his life. And he was like, here's the line that you say. And I was like, this is going to be good. And he's like, if you say to them, like, you give me an example, you give me a product, it works with anything. So he goes, okay, cabinets. He goes, okay, here's the line. Ready? Here's the thing, sir. There's only 3 reasons that people don't buy from me. Number 1 is you don't think the cabinet's going to work for you. Number 2 is you don't think you're going to use it, right? It's not going to work or you're not going to use it. Number 3, and this doesn't seem like the type of thing that's true by you, is you're not the one who makes the decisions. And then he goes, and they will hand over their card to you so quick. Yeah. And I'm looking at this, like crying my eyes out, basically being like, what pathetic advice. Yeah, that's it. That's the system that we've all been sleeping on. Yeah. Question their authority and they'll prove to you how powerful they are by giving you their card and saying, take my money. Or how about we just do what your fiance, girlfriend?
Soon to be fiance.
Soon to be fiance. Okay, fine. We won't tell her that you're proposing anytime soon. Don't worry. We'll keep it a surprise. Hopefully she doesn't listen to this podcast. But why don't we just do, her name is Nikki, you said, right?
Yeah.
Why don't we just do what Nikki did and does, which is the way that God intended relationships to be. Build a genuine relationship with them. Don't try to create some random fancy line.
Yep.
And go from there. And it just baffles me that more people aren't accepting that this is the reality.
And that's where that shift in, when you see farming in that light, it changes how and what you do. If you go back to that, exactly what you just said, and think about how farming was done, it was just I'm awesome. I'm awesome. I'm awesome. I'm awesome. Use me, use me, use me, use me. People go, oh, gross. When they
Yeah.
go, oh, Ryan, I saw Ryan doing this event. Oh, I'm on Ryan's mailing list. Oh, I saw the amazing interviews Ryan's done. Oh, I'm in that Facebook group he's part of. He seems like a really nice guy. I really want to connect with him. He's genuine. He cares about the community. Then they go, here. They say, take my money. But you have to be willing to know it's going to take work. It's going to take some time to put those in place. But the relationships you get and the conversions you get are so much easier when you're at the table signing the contract. You're not competing against anyone. You're not getting the commission fight back because people go, hey, I know you. I like you. I trust you. I trust you know what you're doing. I want to work with you. But it does take that understanding of CPR to really reframe that. And when you get that, that's like I said, that once you reframe yourself, the possibilities are endless.
Absolutely.
So I'll move on just for time's sake. Is the last one is education. And I think that, again, like I said, this is the one that is underutilized and is the greatest opportunity. And one of the most powerful things you can do, and this is what I teach, and I'm developing a program around this is how we built most of our business was we had a neighborhood home prices report. So at the time we had a hard copy. It was a binder. It went out. I don't have it here, but it was like a binder here. We had a cover that slipped in the front, and then we would send a neighborhood report each month. And they would be hole punched, ready to go. They got a binder once. The report would go out, and then we would mail out or drop off the report each month, printed off, hole punched, and it would show the home sales in the area. There'd be a newsletter that would go out. There's some information that was in there. There would be some value adds in there. And we've now switched to a digital version of it. And it's this similar concept where we send out a thing once a month that shows you all these different things. And what we do is we position it as it's a value add for you because it helps keep you engaged in the community. And we built our farm. We had 3,600 people in the farm, and we had 450 people getting our report. And what we did was we tracked the turnover rate of our overall farm. The overall farm turnover rate was, I think it was like 6.7%. Then we went back after we'd done this in our farm, and we tracked what was the turnover rate of the people who were getting our report. And it was 2.5 times higher than the people who were just the general population. So by following up with the people who were getting our report, providing educational materials, creating resources for them, they were 2.5 times more likely to make a move than the general population. So if I'm going to put my time, my attention, and my resources into building a relationship with someone, would I want to put it in option A or option B when I know that we're 2.5 times more likely to get a deal out of it? So the neighborhood home price report allows you to layer in all the other things, and it allows you to use education. You can then use your report to highlight the local business interviews you're doing, because you can literally drop in a YouTube hyperlink. Hey, check out this month's videos that we've done. You can then say, hey, check out our Facebook group, or here's some cool things that we learned from our Facebook group, and we put that into there. You can then say, hey, we're running this new thing. We're getting a new promotion. We've got something going on. Did you want to get this report? Did you want to get this guide? You can have that in there. You can have what I call the client corner. Hey, we've got this coming up. We've got buyers looking for this. We've got sellers looking for that. And that can go into your report. And if you look at it now if you go through scope, that neighborhood home price report layered in with all of those things create an amazing ultimate weapon. Now you've got people getting your information from all different angles, from all different avenues, creating value across the board. And that's what I call strategy stacking. When you learn to put your strategies together to work together, it becomes so powerful, because now when you send that out, it becomes easy to offer, because you have 5 different things you could pitch on. Hey, we got a group. Hey, we've got a video. Hey, we've got community events. Hey, we've got stuff going on. It becomes so much easier when you're at the door to add value to people. If you're just door knocking, if you're just sending out a postcard, people go, I don't care. Next, close the door. So when you put something like this together, it takes some work up front, but it becomes on autopilot. Like Nikki sends out a neighborhood home price report. She's got 280 people on her report right now. She's growing, and it takes an hour and a half each month for her to send out the report. And whether you have 200 people or 2,000 people, it's the same amount of work. Once it's done, you hit send, and it becomes easy to add value. And it's just a great overall way to educate and keep people entertained and informed.
So let me try to recap all of that basically back to you. And I think I should be able to do it in about 120 seconds. But if I can do this, and that means that the clarity in which you not only the clarity in which you had to follow your own steps, but the clarity in which you were able to kind of relay it over to me, right? Because we didn't prepare this beforehand. Nope. This is the idea, right? This is the strategy. So I'm a brand new agent in Westdale, and I'm trying to target let's say families, not university students, but families in Westdale. And Westdale is typically speaking a university town. So there's a lot of students. So I'm trying to target the other people, right? Families. So it starts with, now I understand exactly what the community is. It starts with, let's get to CPR. So the community again is Westdale. Let's look at how I can build and serve my community. So what are the ways of doing this? Well, I look at what it is that they want. They want places to go with their families. They want places to go and eat. They want coupons, ways to save money, but it's all geared around Westdale. How do I make my life, my family's life better in Westdale? So now I understand that conceptually. How am I going to position myself, right? So I want to get attached to the people who are at the top over there, right? I want, like, for example, the restaurant owners. And if I can get in front of them as the expert in Westdale real estate, and also an ambassador in that I'm giving them actual value so that they're fine with me being the one to deliver that, because yeah, he's on our team. He's a Westdale dude, right? So now I've got community. I've got positioning, both as an expert and an ambassador. And in relationships, it's what relationships can I leverage? So number one is, we didn't really get into that, but I know the principal of the school, but also I can start to build the relationships with the business owners who have access to a greater audience. So now we take that, now let's actually leverage it. Now let's use that information to scope ourselves, right? To follow your process. So self-promo, what does that look like? So we're looking at, number one is, what do they want, right? We spoke about what do they actually want. Well, they want to make their lives better in Westdale. So we look at the businesses that serve them. So now we go to those business owners and we build relationships, right, with them, and we interview them on a short video series, let's say, promoting their restaurant, promoting their service, shop, whatever it is. And again, we can be also tactical about this, because we could go for the businesses that are local, that are both helpful to the audience and that have a large following, and I can create videos with them to promote their business. I'll make it super easy for them. There's nothing they have to do. Once I've got those videos, I share it, invite them as a collaborator, and now I'm leveraging their 100,000 person audience as well as my own 200 person audience, let's say. And they're willing to do that because nobody else usually asks them. Exactly. Now that I've got that self-promo down, I'm also able to create a Facebook group that services the people in Westdale in ways that I know that they need to be serviced because of my research, right? So I can promote, well, let's say while I'm promoting myself, I could say at the end, hey, make sure to join our Facebook group. But the idea is that I know exactly what they want, and I create a Facebook group as a central hub to actually deliver that value to them. Now, once I've got that, right, I've got my medium of gathering people's information and being able to speak to them. That's a Facebook group. I've got my medium to get my name out there. That's a self-promo that I'm leveraging my other relationships. Takes us to O, which is online and offline. So I can promote my Facebook group through emails, let's say through the list that I'm building. Let's say I can share my videos in other places on YouTube or whatever it is that's online, and veer that towards my Facebook group. And also offline, I go around my neighborhood, and instead of saying you're thinking about selling or buying, I just say, hey, my name is Oliver Borr. I'm a new local realtor here. Not asking for your business or anything, but I just created a Facebook group for families in Westdale that's going to give them weekly coupons, places to go. I speak with local business owners. There's going to be a ton of value in there. And again, you say the things that they want because you've researched them. Here's a QR code on this card. Let's say the back end has some information about you. The front is just information about the group. And now you've taken your offline efforts as well to promote this ecosystem that you've created for yourself. The other thing that I forgot to mention is that the self-promo interviews that you've done are also being shared on your Facebook group. So now content is also taken care of outside of the coupons and everything like that, right? And if you wanted to get really fancy, the people who you're speaking to can offer, I don't know, a 10% discount anytime they mention Oliver Borr when they go. So now that we've got that, now that we've created this little infinity symbol of ecosystem where it all feeds into each other, now let's get into prospecting, which you clarified as reverse prospecting. So they know who I am. I'm not just some random schmuck knocking at their door. So I knock on their door, and instead of saying, have you thought about ever selling? I reverse prospect. I say, hey, this buyer that I have, or maybe, I don't know if you mentioned this, but let's say there's a more successful agent that has buyers. I can do this for them. So that way you don't even need to have. Great. So that way I don't even need to have buyers. If I'm a brand new agent with nobody, I could still get started on this. So we have buyers that are actually looking for homes just like this in this area. I didn't want to speak to my buyer until I know that there was even a shred of interest from you. But would you be interested in knowing, number one, what my buyer will be willing to pay for your home and what it's worth? So that way I maybe can go and speak to my buyer. Usually people's curiosity would say, yeah, sure, why not? Have a go at it. And I didn't ask for the listing or anything like that. So now, because I'm reverse prospecting in because they know who I am through myself from or through my community and through my offline, they're more receptive between all of that together. Once I've got them in the door, once I'm continuing this prospecting and staying top of mind, the last thing is just about educating them on the actual real estate market through things like a neighborhood home price report. And between the relationships that I'm building, right, this is part of that positioning yourself as the expert. Yep. Between all of that together, when you get all 5 things running simultaneously, it just turns into a behemoth that literally runs itself.
If I had a mic, I'd drop it. Exactly.
Yep. That's awesome stuff, dude. I love how it all kind of synergizes with each other. I think one of the problems with coaches and coaching programs in general is it's just a bunch of information and there's not really much cohesion. And I think that it has to start with understanding where it all ties in, because if you're trying to run 7 simultaneous strategies side by side that don't feed into each other, it's like you have 7 jobs.
Yep, exactly.
And it doesn't work like that.
And that's where that strategy stacking comes into play, and why it's so important is that's where you buy back your time. That's where you start to leverage, because you can start using the strategies to cross over, so that something like a neighborhood home price report, you can mail out your stuff to, you can send out things, you can ask questions, you can share social media. Now, instead of having to do individual things all at once, you can make it work together, and the strategies can overlap. Like I said, if you're outdoor knocking, promoting an event, and prospect, it's the same amount of time to get to the door and same amount of energy to get to the door. So why not do 2 things? If you've got something else going on, why not combine the 2? So the more you can do that in the business, the more likely you're going to reach people, and the easier it is, and the less energy and time you have to put into it. And that's how you grow it. And that's why, when you asked at the beginning, is how do you speed up the process? By doing all of those things. That's how you shift it from 6 to 18 months to 2 months to 3 months and start getting results, and then consistent results.
This is where marketing becomes art.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I love about it.
Yeah, it really is. I think it's hard to not love this when you see the idea kind of come together, and it really is a thing of beauty. So that said, I'm sure everyone listening to this wants to know where they can find more information about this dude. So Ryan, where's your information? Tell us about your coaching program, anything that you've got going on, because we want to know all of it.
I'll being upfront, depending on when this comes out, I'm in rebuild mode. I'm building up some new programs. The easiest way and the best way to connect with me is you can find my website. I'm rebuilding that as well, so ignore the website. It's not the prettiest, but it's launchyourfarm.com. But if you follow me on social media, if you just search Launch Your Farm, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, I'm Twitter, I'm all the places. Launch Your Farm. Launch Your Farm website will have access to the training programs, my blog, my podcast, which your episode will be out hopefully by the time this comes out. We'll see. If it's not, keep an eye open for it. We'll have it out. So I think if you're just getting started, the best place is the podcast, because I've got 110 plus episodes that I've done. I interview agents who are doing geographic farming and breaking down how they're doing it and what they're doing. That's a great place to start to get ideas and concepts. If you want next level, you can find the training programs. I'm not going to pitch anything specific, but I am building out some more done for you systems. So if people want their handheld and just get it done, then we're going to be launching that as well soon.
So I'm going to be adding Ryan's links below. But anybody listening to this, guys, Ryan is on his rise right now. So he's already had success, as we spoke about, but he's going up and up and up. And as that happens, obviously more and more people want his time. And as is the case with supply and demand, his prices are going to be going up as well, inevitably, whether or not he has a plan for it. But it has to happen because
it's happening.
There you go. Okay, so it's only going to continue to happen as more people learn about Ryan and what he's doing. So if you are listening to this and you're like, wow, yeah, I get this, I see this, there is never going to be a better time to take action than right now, because I promise you, maybe tomorrow is going to turn into next week, is going to turn into next month and 6 months. And by the time you decide to finally get your stuff together and actually go ahead with this, Ryan might be charging 3 times the amount. You might not have as much access to him as possible. So if you're listening to this and you want to get involved, go right now. Don't delay. Go check out his website, check out his stuff, get involved in his ecosystem. At the very least, follow him on all platforms, and your business will thank you for it later.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's like a real farm. If you don't plant that seed, it's not going to grow. And the longer you take to plant that seed, the longer it's going to take to get that harvest. So you have to start. I'd rather see you start and half-ass it than not start at all. And I've seen agents who I've talked to them for the last few years. I'm going to start my farm. And every year that you delay is another year of delaying those results. So the sooner you jump on and start getting involved, even if it's messy, even if you're working through it, you're going to get results. You're planting those seeds and you're you're learning, and that's the key to it. And if you're willing to do it, I'm going to finish up with this just because I think it's important. A lot of agents think that other agents are farming. A lot of agents think a lot more agents are farming than they are. A lot of agents think that they're doing it at a higher level than they are. And I can tell you, because I've spoken all across North America. I've trained at hundreds of offices. I've done thousands of conversations. Hardly anyone is doing farming, and hardly anyone's doing it at a high level or even doing it at a good level. There is so much opportunity for you if you're willing to do it. And you can have fun doing it because of the way I teach, because of the strategies I teach. It's not just this boring crap. Go out and hard sell, 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 sell. You can put your flair on it. You can put your flavor on it. You can enjoy what you actually do. And that's how I created it. Like, I created the systems out of things that I wanted to do. It's like, I don't want to do that. So how do I create systems that I'm going to enjoy doing? So if you've thought about farming before, if you've tried it in the past and it's like, oh, it doesn't work, reframe it, rethink about that CPR. And if you're willing to reshape it, there's opportunities for you there.
As you said, not a lot of people are doing it. Nobody's really farming our location, and which is crazy because I saw a Remax sticker on like somebody who lives 2 doors away from me once, and I asked him if he's a realtor, and he's like, yeah. And he was almost like he didn't want to promote himself. It was very strange. Like, I just wanted to talk to him, but he didn't want to like talk about what he did, because I don't know why realtors don't want to. They think that the second they start trying to generate business, they're just like a scumbag realtor sometimes, which is crazy to me. Nobody's farming our location. Nobody's giving any access to any information. We probably have about 7 realtors just on our block, to be honest. And houses are going up for sale all the time, and there's always a different realtor on that sign. And I swear to honestly, my next door neighbor might be a realtor, and I wouldn't even know. So like you said, nobody's really doing this, guys. So check out his stuff, take action on this. And if you keep looking for the next secret, the next hack, the next thing that's going to take you to the top in 5 minutes or less with no work, you're going to be looking forever. So just right now, listening to this, accept the fact that you're going to have to do some work and just embrace it. Embrace the process. Follow Ryan, follow his ecosystem, and let's all succeed together. So thank you, Ryan, for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me on. And I always end up with happy farming, because if you do it, I trust you have happy farming.